Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev, and welcome to my new Python 101 course. So it's been a while since I've done an Intro to Python series, probably a couple of years. So I figured it's time to do a newer, more robust one. I am older, I'm wiser, and I know more about Python than I did a few years ago, and programming in general. So in this series, we're just gonna first few videos are just gonna be going through Python syntax and just the basics of just sort of the Python world. Okay. I mean, I'm someone who definitely comes from more of a JavaScript background, so I definitely have a sensitivity for some of the things that were sort of initially tricky to translate, as far as the different environments. Um, but this first video, let's just talk about just getting your environment set up. So you can install Python either by going to the Python website and just going to downloads. Although what I'd recommend, I think is the better way to go, is to look up how to install pyenv. Okay, pyenv. What this does is going to allow you to install multiple versions of Python. Okay, so how you install it on Windows, how do you install it on Mac, how do you install it on Linux may be different. So Google how to install pyenv on your operating system. So for me, I'd be like how to install pyenv on, well, I'm using Pop OS, but I can essentially look up Ubuntu and it'll give me the right information. Okay, and then it'll show me how to install it. Okay, and just follow those directions. The other thing you're going to want to install is a editor. I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code, so that would be code.visualstudio.com, and there you can just install it. Okay, so those are going to be the two main things you need up front. pyenv, so that way you can switch versions of Python. So let me just give you kind of a tour of that, and then you're going to want Visual Studio Code. So this is Visual Studio Code. I have videos that go over how to use Visual Studio Code, so just type in Alex Merced Visual Studio Code in YouTube. And basically, you're going to want to open it up to a folder. So here, I click on File, Open Folder, and just open it up to an empty folder, and that's going to be where we kind of work out of. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the terminal. So right here, I can click on New Terminal, and this is going to open up a terminal, which is also known as a shell. Okay, think of the terminal as a place where I can kind of like send commands directly to my computer. It's the same thing. The shell is not something unique to VS Code. Okay, every computer has shell environments that look like this. Okay, it's just that Visual Studio Code allows you, instead of having to open up a separate window, allows you to actually open it up right inside of Visual Studio Code. Now I am using a bash shell, so you can see here it says bash. If you're on Windows, you are going to initially by default have something called like CMD or PowerShell. That's not going to have the same commands. So what I would recommend is you download something called git bash. Okay, once you install git bash, okay, which allows you to have kind of like a bash kind of shell on your Windows machine. So you just type in like git bash. Okay, you see right there, git bash. You just install this on your Windows machine. Okay, and then you will have that environment, and then you should be able to go here and see where it says like configure terminal settings. You should be able to like go in there and like change like which terminal you're using and whatnot. Okay, and then you can also go over here and say like click there. There used to be like a change default terminal option. It's not as quite as easy to find as before, but there's a way for you to change like which terminal you're using. Okay, let me just see if I can find the specific option over here. I think if I go over here, run tasks, configure tasks. Okay, right now I'm not finding the option as easy as I used to, but there is an option somewhere so you can change. So that way you're not using git bash, but instead using, you're not using like PowerShell, but instead using like git bash, which is what you're going to want to be using. And one last little note of things to install. Another really cool thing if you're using your terminal, which you should be, you're going to want to install Starship RS. This is a really cool tool. This is what makes my terminal look nice and pretty. So that way I get like little things like this that tell me like where my folder is, what Git branch am I on, you know, my AWS region, all these kind of things. Very, very nice. So that's this. Just follow the directions and install that. Okay, this is optional, but I think it's worth it. Makes using the terminal a much more pleasant experience. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, if you, assuming you have Python installed, you installed everything, you should be able to do Python dash dash v, or actually dash dash version, and this should tell you what version of Python you have installed. Okay, I'm currently using 3.10, soon 3.11 should be being released, so looking forward to that. Okay, so that tells you that you have Python installed, and I can use it. Now, whenever I want to like run a Python script, so for example, I'll just create a file. So I'm going to click right over here and create a file. We'll call it, intro.py. So py is the extension for a Python file. These are just text files. Okay, and essentially what's going to happen is that when I run a Python file, it's going to read the text I have in the file and then run the code. So the simplest thing you can learn is the print function. The print function literally just prints something to the shell or to the terminal, okay, which is going to be one of the most important things ever. Okay, you don't realize how important that is now because it's going to be the main way we can confirm that our code has done what it's doing. Okay, so I can just type in quotation marks and then put quotation in the quotation marks. I can write what I want the screen to say. So I'll say hello world, your traditional hello world program. Okay. Now keep in mind that I have autosave on. So if you do not, which by default it is not on in VS Code, make sure you hit file save whenever you make an update. See, I have autosave on, so that's why you won't see me actively save. Okay. Because again, when I run the code, it's only going to run what I saved, not what I necessarily have typed over here. Okay. So you just want to make sure that the file is saved. So if I type in Python, okay, and see when I open up Visual Studio Code, since I have my folder open up in Visual Studio Code, when I open up the terminal in VS Code, it automatically opens it to that same folder. So I don't even have to think about it. The terminal is actually open in the folder that I'm currently in. So I can see if I type in pwd, see I'm in this Python 2022 folder. Okay, so in that case, because I'm in the same folder, I can do Python and then just put the name of the file, intro.py. So I want to say, hey, I want to run with Python this file called intro.py. Okay, and I do that, and see, it does exactly what I told it to do, print hello world. So you've just technically ran a Python script. You are now a programmer. Congratulations. Okay, but essentially that's the setup. Okay, so I'll wrap this first video up there, but hopefully this kind of make sure that we all have the same environment working going forward. Another thing that doesn't hurt is that when you're looking at Visual Studio Code, there's these things called extensions. There should be like a Python pack of extensions. So if you just type in Python, let me just see what we got here. The Python extension pack. Yeah, so you want to look for that, and you're going to want to install that. That's going to generally install all the main things you're going to want when you're working with Python and make your life a lot easier. Okay, but with that, I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great day and enjoy.